Hello, this is the Insurance Perspectives podcast presented by HawkSoft. On today's show, we have Scott Howell of iProtect Insurance and Financial Services and co-host of the Insurance Guys podcast. Scott, you notoriously say that you want to give your podcast guests the introduction they always deserved. So today, we enlisted the help of an Alabama celebrity to help with your intro. Also, a shout out or blame on Bradley for steering us in this direction. Jeff, roll the tape.
Willie,
Yes!
look right here. We'd like to welcome Scott Howell to the Insurance Perspectives podcast.
Let's go, Scott! Let's go! Let's
Look,
get it done!
That's right. Listen right here, Willie. Scott is from Hamilton, Alabama, but lives in Pine Ridge, Alabama.
Well, he lives in the greatest state there is. The Alabama, the beautiful.
That's
the
it.
only state
The
there is.
only state there is. But look right here, it gets even better. The man did 4 years in the Marines, Willie. 4 years.
Shoot, I'm proud of him. I'm going to salute him.
That's right. Best
The
country.
best country is keeping us safe.
No doubt about it. But look,
We're proud of him.
ain't no doubt we're proud of him. Proud of all of them, ain't we, Willie?
Every one of them.
Look right here. Scott started his career at State Farm.
Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
That's exactly right. Then he joined Nationwide, and now Scott became one of the fastest growing nationwide exclusive agencies in the country,
Well,
Willie.
let's get out there and get it done. Let's do it. Let's get it done.
That's-
We don't give a piss about nothing but the time. Blip, babble, blip.
That's right. But look, Scott has an amazing wife named Kim, and when Scott's not bush hogging, he's supporting his son at a baseball tournament.
Yeah, you gotta get out there and hit it, knock it over the fence.
Knock it over the fence, put your glove on the ground. Ain't that
That's
right,
it.
Willie?
Get down there and get it. Bam, chuck him out.
That's right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's our honor to introduce to you the first-time guest on IP Podcast, Mr. Scott Howell. Let's go, Scott.
Let's go, Scott. Let's go. Get it done. Let's go.
Man, I am rarely speechless, but I am speechless right now. And what makes that introduction so interesting and so good? So I'm going to throw it back on Willie for a second. I guess it was, I always tell people on the Insurance Guys podcast that I know every single person in that state of Alabama, right? I say that all the time. But to prove my point, the man that just gave me that intro on my phone right here, he and I took a picture together on the track at Talladega in April of this year. So I actually have a picture of he and I on the Talladega NASCAR racetrack, like arm around each other at the track.
That's amazing.
So,
That is
thank you,
absolutely
Willie. I
amazing.
appreciate that, brother.
We there was no in no world would I have been able to do as good an introduction as Roll Tide Willie, but also
That's right.
as yourself. And so in the pre-production meetings, we were like, how can we even come close to the types of introductions that you do on the Insurance Guys podcast? And so we were like, well, we just got to hire it out.
Right.
And I told Jeff and I were talking, and I was like, Willie's gonna be his neighbor. Willie's gonna be his friend. Like, he's gonna have met the man. So I appreciate you completing that circle.
Oh, absolutely. I'm trying to find that picture right here. I'll have to go back and look, but yeah, I can't believe I met him, and we didn't have a chance to really talk. I just said,
Sure.
Hey, but it was one of those situations. There's thousands of people there, and he and I are standing beside each other, and I said, hey, let's get a picture together. But man, I just want to say thank you to you, Kenny, and Jeff, our producer and editor here at HawkSoft, and the whole HawkSoft family for having me on the show today. I have been going around like Johnny Appleseed for the past month or two, and I've actually changed my business card. So I have a new title in the industry. I am Senior Vice President of Sales for HawkSoft, part-time.
Okay.
And listen, for everybody at HawkSoft that listens to this, Paul Moyes, probably needs to really tighten up the reins a little bit and get right with the Lord on selling the HawkSoft product, because won't be too long before Daddy Paul calls and says, "Hey, Moyes, you're out. Howell's coming in from the bullpen," because I bet you I have sold 7 agencies, maybe eight, 7 to 8 agencies. I have sold the HawkSoft product to close the deal.
Yeah. And we appreciate the help.
Over the past 6 months, since January. So, not only, you hear people say first time caller, long time listener, first time podcast guest, long time senior vice president of sales for HawkSoft. And I have taken to calling the HawkSoft Service Center when our agency needs support. And I'll say, "Hey, listen, my name's Scott Howell, and I do own an agency, and we do use the HawkSoft product, but might want to make a note there. I'm also the senior vice president of sales part-time for HawkSoft." And so, yeah, there's a synergy here, right? But I just want to tell you, Kenny, how much I know we got a lot of questions that you sent me over that we want to talk about today, and I'm going to shut up in just a second, but I just want to say thank you to you and to Bradley and to everybody else for that outstanding introduction.
Well, you're very welcome. We'll get you a copy, so you can show your friends, and then we'll also be people listening. I definitely encourage you to go to the YouTube copy of this to watch.
Sure.
Roll Tide Willie give the introduction. Scott, I am really grateful that you're here with us today, because in a sense, on a fundamental level, the work you do with the Insurance Guys podcast really helped inspire us to take the leap into this vehicle. But also how you conduct yourself in life, on the podcast, as a professional, inspired a piece of our series exploring mental health in the insurance workspace. We'll dive into it as to kind of why that is. But I want to give our listeners a foundation on iProtect. So could you give us a peek inside the agency? How many people work there? When you're not senior vice president of sales at HawkSoft, what do you do in overseeing the agency?
I started out in 2008 as an associate agent with State Farm Insurance. For a period of about 18 months, I worked for a agency principal, a State Farm local agency in a place called Homewood, Alabama, which is in the dead center middle of Birmingham, Alabama. Birmingham's segmented into all these little, communities, and Homewood happens to be one of those communities. I left there after 18 months. The same day, that morning at 10 a.m., I walked into a boardroom with Italian leatherback chairs, and when I left that boardroom an hour and a half later at 11:30, I had been approved to be a State Farm agency owner. Well, that afternoon at 2 o'clock, a nationwide sales manager who I had been job dating with for about a month called me and offered me a position as a scratch agent with Nationwide Insurance in Huntsville, Alabama, and I accepted. And about 30 minutes after that call, where I accepted that position, I got a call from the AVP. State Farm has these things called AVP positions. I think they've done away with them now, but it's basically like a senior level territory manager calls me, and he's so excited that I've been accepted into the State Farm program, and we're going to do great things together. And I'm just going to keep it 100 for y'all. I did not have the heart that day, at that time, to bust his bubble and let him know that I had just accepted a position with Nationwide. So I think I waited, I don't know, a week or 3 or 4 days before I called and told him that. So, yeah, that's been my journey. So now we're at iProtect Insurance, as you know, everybody knows, in July of 20, time's getting away from me. I believe it was July of 2020. We, for about 18 months, had been prepping to go independent as far as Nationwide. You know, contracts and the word had gotten out, and they were releasing all of their captive agents to the wild, wild world of independence. And since that time, our agency's doubled in size. So we were about $7 million in premium as a captive with a, pretty established brand, the Nationwide brand. We went from around 7 million then to closing in on 14 million today. And 14 employees, 6 locations.
Wow.
That's a little bit deceiving because most of our locations only have a couple of people in each office. That's kind of who we are and what we are. And, I've got a great team. And when I say great team, we're not really great at insurance. We're okay, but I got a good group of people.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what I got.
Please.
I got 14 people that you'd leave your kids with.
Yeah.
And when you get 52 years old, that means a lot.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
No, it makes total sense. That conveys a very strong level of trust.
Exactly. I got 14 people that if you met them for about 10 minutes, you'd go, yeah, I'd leave my kids with them.
Yeah.
They're good folks. They're good people. And now at the stage in my career that I'm at, that means more to me than anything.
Often people talk about business as family, but in a sense, because you have so many locations, your, like the iProtect brand, your reputation, the trust you have in the community, like that is something that you're entrusting to those people that work in those offices that represent you, not only, you, but also themselves in the community. So trust is super important there.
When I hired you into iProtect Insurance, man, it takes a lot for me to have to terminate your employment.
Sure.
I always tell people, or at least here lately, I've been saying this. I'll say, we got to do a lot better job of making sure we bring in the right people. Because once you're here, you ain't going nowhere. I got people been with me for 14, 12 years, 13 years. So, yeah, I hope I answered your question.
No, absolutely. That gives us gives listeners a great foundation for what I want to ask you now. Because you're hands-on with the agency, your people really well, you're involved, you know what's going on in their lives. So listeners who are listening to this podcast have probably listened to the Insurance Guys. And if you haven't, you should definitely go and check them out, listen to them. Insurance Guys podcast, best in the business. I'm not afraid to say that as a competitor. But you're very open on that, and I can say that life has beaten you up a bit over your life. You've talked openly about health issues, morale/moral issues with staff you've had in the past.
Yes.
You have to put up with Bradley Flowers on a regular basis. So,
by the way, you should have thrown that out there first.
Fair.
That should have been number one.
I want to know, Scott, how do you keep a positive attitude and keep yourself moving forward through all that?
I think that there's 2 things I'll say to this, maybe 3. Number one, when I get in that place, I have probably the last 3 years at some point, and yesterday took me about 8 hours to get there, but once I finally recognized that I was in a bad mood and that I was just mentally in this spot, I thought to myself, why am I letting other people control my mood? Right? Because that's what you're doing. So my wife, again, sitting across from me right now, say hi. She's literally 5 feet away from me on the couch. She has a tendency to do that with some of her family,
Mm.
where, we've all got that family member that'll say something that just,
Oh yeah.
you want to get in your car and go to their house and skin off in the front yard and fight.
Yeah.
And so what I try to do is at some point in that, I think to myself, don't let other people control my mood that I'm in, okay? I also think about something I heard Mike Stromso say one time. And I say this to my people all the time. In my agency, I say, did anybody die? Did anybody die?
Yeah.
Okay. If nobody died, we can fix this, okay? And I found myself saying that quite often in the last 3 or 4 years. But I think you have to do those two things and understand. And I think it's easier to do as you get older, because when you're younger, something will happen to you and you just can't seem to get off of it. When you catch yourself, at some point you got to say, I'm not going to let this other person control my mood and who I'm going to be as a person. And I literally said that to myself yesterday as we were walking out the door to go to the beach. I'm not going to let other people control my mood. And then the other thing I'll say is, and this is the last thing I'll say about it, I think you have to take a break.
Yeah.
I heard somebody say one time about a year ago, and I've never forgot. I probably think of this twice a week. And what they said was, I take the first vacation for my family, I take the second vacation for me, and I take the third vacation because by God I can. I'm going to end with this, and we'll go to the next thing. The last thing I'll say is this. The best ideas I have, the times that I feel the most mentally energized in terms of coming up with great ideas for the podcast, for the agency, for my people, have most of the time come when I was somewhere besides in the middle of it.
I think that to summarize, I love the visual of recognizing that the windshield on your car is much bigger than your rearview mirror, because what is in front of you and what is presently happening more important than what you see in that rearview mirror. I try to emote your second point internally at HawkSoft as much as I can. I saw a great little, it was like a tweet or an Instagram thing that was like, we're saving PDFs, we're not saving lives. Like, it's the statement that insurance is a business built on risk, and you're writing homes, you're writing auto. You're going to have customers that encounter situations that are life and death. And in those situations, you're going to be all hands on deck. But the day-to-day of anyone's life is probably not that severe. And it helps deflate those kind of bigger these things that feel huge when it's like, hey, there's no blood, there's only a few tears. No one's going to die if this doesn't happen on this timeline. I love that a lot.
Well, the other thing that people have a really hard time with, that I don't have as hard a time with, is at some level, once, I'm 52, my wife is 47, but at some level, at some time, I think you stop caring nearly as much about what people think.
Yeah.
And remember, it's human nature, because remember when we were kids, you cared what everybody thought. My gosh, if somebody spread a rumor about you at school, it was just the biggest thing in your life. And you care so much about what people think. All the way back to the psychological dynamic of, I've got to go get a new back to school outfit to wear the first day of school. Well, psychologically what you're doing is you care about what everybody at school thinks you look like.
Yeah.
But as you get older, I think you realize there's some people in our book of business I could give $100 bill to, and they'd be pissed off because it wasn't 520s.
Sure. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think as you get older, you do stop caring quite as much about what people think of you, and maybe that allows you to be a little more open and a little more just hang it out there a little bit more. You just don't
Yeah.
care anymore. Like I just don't. My give a damn button's broke.
Yeah. Okay. And with
Yeah,
that,
yeah. Kim just said, leave your negativity on the pillow at night. She is the best I have ever seen at sleeping it off. She can go to sleep, get up, new day has dawned, and she's fine. And she's fine. She's the best I've ever seen at it.
so listeners are going to know you're a candid individual. You tell it how it is. You're an open book. What value does that bring to your life, being this open and honest? What does that do for you? How do people react to it?
Well, let me say this first. A lot of people tell me I'm too open. My agency manager has told me, Scott, I can't believe that you're as open with our people as you are. I just believe, and maybe some of this comes with age too, I don't know. And I think it kind of starts with a podcast. I don't think you can have a super successful podcast if you're not being open and honest and telling the real deal. And that's the problem. That's how the IGP started in 2017. Is nobody seemed to wanted to help me. Nobody, agency owners would say things like, well, just work harder and open the phone book and go sell. And so what I've always tried to do on the podcast is be as open and honest about the good and the bad
Yeah.
of being an agency owner. I heard somebody say something one time that I've never forgotten. And it wasn't too terribly long ago, maybe 3 years ago. The worst lie that you can tell, the worst lie, is 60% truth.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yeah.
Now, think about that for a second. If I'm going to get on the IGP and I'm going to help these agents, I personally believe they get way more out of the I've done wrong than the stuff I've done right. And I just try to keep that 100 and not ever paint a picture of something that's not accurate.
Let's talk about like clients or your team. How do they respond when you are honest with them? Do you get honesty back?
I think that, yes, I think so. I would say 10 or 11 of the people we have in our agency, if you waterboarded them and gave them sodium pentothal, which is truth serum,
Yeah.
I think they would say, I love Scott and I know he loves me.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes they're a little scared of me.
Yeah.
And I have to do a better job of softening those edges myself because
Yeah.
I do get the feeling that, especially when it comes to bad news, there's certain people in my agency that know me well are not afraid to call and say, hey, man, we need to talk. I got something big. Certain people are probably like, oh, I don't really want to call him because this is going to be bad. But for those people, they're probably people who haven't been with us that long or whatever, but they also realize once that bad thing does happen, I'm a lot like Nick Saban in a locker room. People saw Nick Saban in the locker room and they get beat by Auburn and they think, oh man, he went in there and he just tore them up. I'm the exact opposite. Meaning, and he was too.
Right.
Instead of that, he would walk in a locker room and he was more father-like.
Yeah.
Hey guys, you played hard today.
Yeah.
You got a lot to be proud of. We got to work harder. We got to improve. We got to get better. But he wasn't screaming and yelling, and that's kind of how I am. When bad stuff happens, I slow down. I immediately go into that thing where I start, how do we fix this?
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not screaming and yelling at anybody. I say it all the time. I don't play the blame game. I don't care who's at fault. It does not matter. We got to fix it.
You've said this a few times on on your podcast. You said that your staff, by and large, know that you love them and they love you. I've heard you talk about this idea of it's gonna sound this sounds hokey. This idea of like, hey, I love these people, and you're very open about that, and you tell people that.
Yep.
Where does that come from in your life? What? Because you're Scott, you're a manly man. I don't want to make Kim jealous. I'm not making a pass. I'm just saying, as an individual, you're a manly man, but you are also comfortable saying, Bradley, I love you. That type of thing, where I think a lot of men struggle with that. So I'd love to know your perspective on it. Why is it important for you to say that to people?
I think where that comes from is to some degree being in situations in my life where I wasn't able to say goodbye to somebody. And you never know, man. You may get off this podcast today, Kenny, and you may get in your vehicle and drive home and have a terrible accident. And how many people would you want to say I love you to before you left?
Absolutely.
And I think it's important that men understand that, saying I love you doesn't equate to you being weak or less than, or that you're, whatever. And I think Kim's right. So when you were talking just a minute ago and asking me that question, she said it also takes people off guard.
Yeah.
It also, it makes people, they kind of, whoa, I can't believe he just said that. But I think it just comes from my life experiences and maybe some of the health issues I've had where I didn't know whether I was going to make it or not. And at some point, realizing that, we've all got one go around this big spinning rock. And if you get the chance to tell somebody you care about that you love them, you probably need to do that. Yeah. And then, because habits become rituals, right? It's just kind of become a ritual of mine that, if I love somebody, I tell them.
Yeah.
I got people in my agency, in my family, not team, family.
Yeah.
Every time we get off the phone, we tell each other we love each other. Yeah, so I've got a shirt. I should have wore it today. It said, big men have, by the way, when I wear this, I probably get stopped. It's one of the reasons I don't wear it much as I would like to. If I wear it one day, I'll get stopped 6 times by people that will say, oh my God, I love your shirt. Big men have feelings too.
Yeah.
Is what it says.
No, and I think that's important. And that's, I think that it's really important in the world. You're a public figure, especially in our space. And I think that one of the reasons why we're like, we got to have Scott on this series is because we felt that you model such a positive output and such a, you model this idea or this perspective for men in our industry that is more vulnerable, more open, more engaging with their people. It's a decision about where you're framing your perspective on the world, and it matters. It matters to how you go through life and engage on that. I have one last question for you. We've borrowed so much of your time, and I really want to let you get back to the beach. Are there any other like resources or life lessons you've learned that have helped with your mental health or how you engage with your agency? Anything that the listeners should be aware of before we wrap it up today?
So I've always been a Tom Cruise in the movie Cocktail. Always had a self-help book behind the bar. Remember that? I'm that guy. even back in my early 20s, was reading self-help books. And, there's a lot of books that I have read that have really resonated with me. Some that have not resonated with me as much. One that I read last year, and ironically enough, I can't believe I'm saying this, but the recommendation for that book came from Jason Cass. But it was Matthew McConaughey's book that he came out with, Red Lights, Green Lights.
Yeah.
Talks a little bit about some of the stuff we're talking about right now. Fantastic read. I learn best through listening from, I call it Audible University, but Audible, the app. So I'll just throw a couple of books out at you that I have read. And these books that I'm about to impart on your listeners are some that go along with some of the things we're talking about right now. So here's one entitled, if I can find it, hold on just a second. Title details. How Will You Measure Your Life by Clayton M. Christensen. That's a book that I'm reading right now. I'm on chapter 4. Fanatical Prospecting. There's a good one for you. I don't know that there's anything more important in an insurance agency than prospecting. But that's not the one that I wanted to bring up to your listening audience. The one I wanted, of course, I've read all of Tony Robbins' stuff. Here's the one. So here's the one I wanted to share with you right now. Good Vibes, Good Life. I don't know if you can see that because of the glare.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Good Vibes, Good Life by Vex King. I've read that book probably 4 times. The crux of that book is just, the energy that you put out into the world is the energy normally you're going to get back, right?
Yeah.
And the times in the last 3 or 4 years when I've been at my peak, at my best, I think were times when I was putting out great energy. Not just to my team members, not just to our clients, not just to prospects, not just to my beautiful wife, but to everybody. I was putting out a higher frequency and a more positive energy into the world. And I know everything I'm saying right now is hokey, but I'm telling you, if you're one of those people that can put out positive energy into the world and you've got this, I call it energy, positive energy, when you meet people, you're going to get that positivity back. Conversely to that, if you're one of these, woe is me, you're always in a 48-hour window of some tragedy and my health's bad. I'm going to end by saying this because this is kind of going back to what we were just previously talking about. You said something to me about, you were talking about me being a public figure, okay? Let me say this, and I said this on the podcast about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I don't think I got to fully vet and say exactly what I wanted to. So hopefully I can say it here.
Please.
It is not lost on me of where I stand in my position of leadership in the insurance industry, okay? It is not lost on me. It's something I think about constantly. And yes, I hang it out there. And yes, I say some crazy shit. And yes, I'm open. And yes, I sometimes say stuff that has to be edited out of the podcast by Bradley. I'll agree with all that. But I will say this. It is never lost on me that I have a responsibility to my family, to my wife, to my team members and my family there, to you, Kenny, to the HawkSoft family, who last year was a title sponsor of the podcast, to all the listeners, to all the independent agents out there. I know where my spot is in the leadership chain, and it is never lost on me that I need to make good decisions and not do things that could either A, get me canceled, or B, lose very quickly that spot
Yeah.
of leadership in the industry. Because, and you're like, well, what are you talking about more specifically? Well, okay, first of all, if I'm going to be open and honest, I'm going to be open and honest. But things like, doing drugs or cheating on my wife or going out here and doing something to get me put on the 6 o'clock news or getting in a fist fight with a Domino's pizza guy, which I nearly did 5 minutes before this podcast. True story. All of those things would erode very quickly my position of leadership in this industry. And it's something that I constantly think about. Mm-hmm. It's a reason why I do, and I kind of need to thank everybody for that because, I am capable of doing stupid stuff. And that's something I think about a lot, and it's something I think everybody in the industry, if you've got a leadership role, wherever you stand in that pecking order, you better understand if you're going to go out to an insurance, here's another one, go into an insurance conference and cheating on your wife, or going out and getting blackout drunk and they find you in the lobby of the hotel. All those types of things erode, and in some cases very quickly erode, your standing in that pecking order of leadership in this industry. Mm-hmm. And it's something I think about a lot.
Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons why I love HawkSoft. Because let me tell you something. You want to talk about a man's man? I've been in that Ford F-250. You know the one I'm talking about?
I know the truck you're talking about.
You know who I'm talking about?
Yes, I do.
You think that man's doing anything to erode his standing and his leadership of HawkSoft?
Definitely
Hell
not.
No.
No.
He's the model. He's the model that people should be going, I want to be like that guy. And he can say whatever he wants to say. I know I would bet my next 100 paychecks there have been some businesses and some VCs and some big bad vendor types that have come to him with a check larger than probably you and I have ever seen in our whole life. And he said no.
Every time.
And that means a lot to me.
Yeah, for listeners who are maybe newer to HawkSoft, we're talking about the CEO of HawkSoft, Paul Hawkins. And I have absolutely been in rooms where his phone will ring, he'll look at the number, he'll either know who it is and not pick up, or they'll be using yet another spoofed 503 or something, and he'll pick up, he'll listen for about 5 seconds, and he'll just say nope and hang up. It's a very consistent position, and I appreciate you saying that because I think that I appreciate the explanation you gave about your self-awareness and your perspective on the industry, because I think that oftentimes that type of position would generate a much more negative energy individual.
Right.
But I have never seen that from you.
Hey, you know what they say? When you get rich, it doesn't change you. It just makes you more of what you are.
Absolutely.
So you can get rich and you can say, on paper, I'm rich. I mean, I am. On paper, I'm rich. I mean, I could make one call today to Matt Niamoli, who might be the smartest guy in our entire industry, and say, I'm putting this agency up for sale. I want you to handle the sale. A month or two from now, I would be a millionaire. It's not going to change who I am. I'm just going to be more of who I am. Mm-hmm. Good or bad, it's going to be more. And so I think that's kind of what you're saying is, people get some influence and they get a little bit of what I call, I tell my wife, Kim, all the time, I'm like, you realize I'm like H-list celebrities. They got like
Yeah.
A-list celebrities and B-list and C-list. I'm like H. I'm the guy that gets recognized in the Atlanta airport 1 out of every 3 times I go through there.
Sure.
And so when there's an insurance conference where
Yeah.
people are actually going through Atlanta. But yeah, I just think money makes you more of whatever you were. If you were a piece of before you got money, you're gonna be a bigger piece of when you get it.
Yep. Just facilitates more of your
That's right.
entertainment.
That's right.
Obviously, to listeners, we could do another hour, and I would love to, but I want to be respectful. I want to be respectful of Kim's time, and so, Scott, I'm gonna say thank you so much from myself. I've loved this conversation. From the team at HawkSoft, we really appreciate your support of us and all the work you do for us as a senior vice president of sales part-time.
Thank you.
I want to say thank you to Jeff for orchestrating our connection with Roll Tide Willie. An excellent person to give your introduction. Thank you for watching today's episode. Click the video description below to learn more about our guests and to view the latest podcast episode as well as other content from HawkSoft. We appreciate you watching and hope you join us next time on the Insurance Perspectives Podcast. Thank you.